Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody, and I'm really not used to sitting with my back to the audience. I apologize for that, but welcome everyone here tonight. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you showing your interest in what goes on in Nash County, community college, school system, as well as the Board of Commissioners. And again, I apologize, I don't feel comfortable. I'm looking to see if I got anybody out there that really don't like me, that I should be aware of. And if there's someone there you hadn't told me yet, so maybe I'll be okay.
I hope the aim's straight.
Huh?
I said I hope the aim's straight.
Yeah, you hope they ain't straight. I understand that, sir. I sure do. But I would like to welcome everyone. Just for a little bit of history, the school board and the Board of Commissioners have had a practice. We were actually done it by general statute for 3 years. We met twice a year. Now we do it because we choose to do it, that we're beyond that point. And we meet one time during the budget season, which is in April most of the time, and primarily to have the community college as well as the school board present their budget to the Board of Commissioners, because we are a significant funding agency for each one of those entities. It is customary for the Board of Commissioners to begin their meetings with a prayer. During this prayer, I'm going to ask Ms. Wells to have the prayer for us, but you're welcome to join us in the prayer. You're welcome to use this time to have your own prayer, or you're welcome to use it for a moment of silence, whichever might suit each individual one of you. Ms. Wells?
Thank you. Let's pray. Father, we come together tonight. We come as a diverse group. God, we have the young, we have the old, and we have those in between. But God, we come with one thing in mind. That thing is to educate our children, whether it's in the lower grades or whether it's in the community college. And God, we just ask as we go through this meeting tonight that we just remember that the most important asset we have is our children. As we make our decisions, may we look at that before we make some harsh decisions that would go otherwise. Just be with each one's here, bless each family, give them a safe trip home. And God, just thank you, the community sees a need to become involved. In your precious name, amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Wells. At this time, I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Commissioners together. We are in a recess meeting from our last meeting, so we call it together this time, and I'll turn it over to the Chair, Franklin Lamb.
At this time, I'd like to call the Nash-Rocky Board of Education to order. And I'd like to turn it back over to Ms. Davis for.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave it here for just 1 second, and then I'm going to turn to budget presentation. We are going to have the community college go first. My memory will not allow me to know who went first last time. If I got it out of order, I apologize, but I do think the community college will be rather quick. They have met with our staff numerous times, and I think we're in pretty good shape with their budget. So, Bill, I'll give it to you, sir, and you move forward with it. Well, if you've been here for the, they did. They went last year. Thank you, Mr. Belfield. I should have. Mr. Belfield remembers more than I do, and I don't quite understand that because he's got a birthday or two on me. But Bill, I welcome you here tonight. I'm very sad to see. Sir? I got you. I understand. I do welcome you here, Dr. Carver. It is a joyous occasion to see you here, but a sad occasion because it may be your last time with us. I certainly hope not. You agreed to stay, as I understand it, until we found a new president, and your board, numerous members have promised me they were going to drag the feet as long as they could. So with that said, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for those kind comments. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Nash Community College in this joint session. I think it's befitting that the community college and the public school system come together to talk about how we're going to educate the citizens of this county. And it's indeed an honor to be here this evening, and I always want to recognize, if I might, the board members that are present with us tonight. And we have with us Sonny Foster, our vice chair. He's in the back of the room. If he'll just raise his hand and let everybody know where he's sitting. Mr. Bill Marshman. Mary Wells, y'all may recall, is also a dual role. She's on our board and is a commissioner, and Wayne Outlaw. Mr. Outlaw, thank you for your service on the Board of Trustees. Paul Jaber, our chairman, does send his regrets. He is still a working banker and is out of town attending a very important meeting, and apologizes to this group. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I want to also thank you for, this is my 14th time coming before you to ask for the support of the community college budget and its operation, keeping the lights on and the buildings in the fine condition that they are, that our students enjoy. I get many, many comments throughout the year, and I do get compliments on what our campus looks like and compared to other community colleges around. So we do have a little bragging rights. We have made a lot of progress this year. Our partner has also made an investment on campus in C building, turning that into the home of the early college. Thank you, Dr. Jeffries, for what you have done. And I know Shannon's in the back of the room, and a lot of people give credit to, but thank you for what you have done to turn that building in and get the trailers off campus, and we're going to dress that green space up. I think I've come before you many times and have always started to remind everyone, and since you started with some kind words, Mr. Chairman, I also want to remind you that the Lord loves a generous giver. So that being said, we have looked at a few things on our budget this year. We're expanding slightly, mainly in the salary areas, trying to catch some people up. We do need an extra position, as you have generously allowed us to expand our footprint. It does require people to make that happen and to keep it clean and repaired in the shape that you expect. And I have said to you before, and as I'm doing this advertisement, that all I've ever wanted is for this community college to represent what's best about Nash County. I'd like to think in my 32 years here and 14 years as president that we have accomplished that objective together. You can attest to the air conditioning working properly tonight. I can feel it in this room. So we've had a hot day. We had a great day. And before I ask Ms. Covington to come up to the podium and walk us through the finer points of the budget, just today in this very room, we had probably, Dr. Jeffries, 400 CIS seniors in the room that were celebrating their accomplishments as we head into this season of celebration. We got graduation coming in a couple of weeks, and just a week ago we celebrated student achievement. So it is a time where we culminate all of this with commencement, and I know that we look forward to putting on the robes and celebrating what goes on. And in these facilities that we are going to hold this very graduation in this room, and we're going to do it in partnership with early college. They'll march in this room too. And so we have a lot to be proud of, ladies and gentlemen, that reside in this county. I also want to report that 16 community colleges experienced growth last year. We were among the 16, and 9 community colleges this year. Again, we're among those 9. So we are doing the things, and we have programs that students want to come and take. In our latest and greatest program, we know last year was associate in engineering. This year we have remodeled the ground floor of D building to become vet tech. We are bringing that program that has never been in Eastern North Carolina to Eastern North Carolina. It's long overdue. We're doing this in conjunction with our school system partner down the road as we have more students elect to come to Nash Community College. We will have a large nursing class to graduate, so if we have our hospital partners in the room, I know they're going to be glad to hear that. Ms. Covington, if you would, will you come up here and help me get through the budget process? Y'all know Adrienne Covington, and she was the one that helped prepare this presentation and these slides tonight.
Good evening. This is just a summary of our 2019 through 2020 county budget request, and the total request totals $2.8 million, and that's a 6% increase over last year's amount. So this is just a breakdown, total operating expansion request of 2.3, and then total capital and plant funds request of $470,000. Looking more detail into the operating, the top 2 categories, operations and maintenance, the bulk of those changes are salary related, as Dr. Carver mentioned. We have 13 full-time positions, and 9 part-time positions. And we are asking for an increase of 2% for the bulk of those employees and a 5% increase for our lower paid employees. And those would be employees that are under $30,000. So total increase there, just salary-wise, would be about $15,000. So you see the bottom line there of 6%. The budget assumptions this year include a 2% increase or a percent increase or decrease, just looking at our past expenses and what we project for this coming year. We do have some pretty hefty increases coming for our retirement rate. That will be moving from 18.86% to 20.43% this year. And then our medical premiums will be increasing to $6,349. And total fringes and salary increases, taking all these increases into mind, is about $30,000 to our budget. We do have a request for an expansion position, and that is for 1 full-time custodial position, and that would be salary and fringes a little over $41,000, and that need is just due to our increased footprint on campus with 3 new buildings, the Con Ed building, advanced manufacturing, and then cosmetology. Next, our capital request detail, again requesting $470,000. Building routine maintenance of $220,000. Part of that includes the repaving of the loop road back behind campus. We're seeing a lot of wear and tear with all the traffic and bus traffic and so forth. Equipment request, $10,000 just for miscellaneous equipment. And the capital upgrade request, the library and cafe roof is in need of replacement. That's the original roof from 1995. The elevator in Building A, again, original to the building, and so we need to do a complete overhaul modernization of that unit. And then also requesting funds for a covered shelter for our maintenance equipment, and that will allow the expansion of our welding program to be able to use part of that space in our current maintenance shop that will be vacated into the metal structure or storage. And lastly, just want to give you a quick Connect NC Bonds update. To date, we have completed 10 projects, and we have 4 projects in progress. New construction totals $5.5 million, and that was our 2 new buildings we opened last summer, a vehicle shelter for our fire and EMS vehicles, and then the veterinary technology addition that we're about to get started on. Repair and renovation totals $2.3 million, and HVAC replacements, 5 units campus-wide. It's a little shy of about 500 tons of air conditioning units we've replaced. Roof replacements, we have replaced 3 roofs on A, B, and this building, the B&I, and then various building renovation projects across campus, including our vet tech renovation in the lower level of Building D.
We're prepared to take questions at this time, if there are any.
Mr. Belfield?
On roof repair, what kind of roof are you planning on replacing?
Those have already been completed.
Already
We replaced
been-
the building A, B, and this building, the B and I. So we did 3 complete roof replacements. Those are, all 3 are completed. Yes, and 2 in this year's replacement.
All right, another
Library
question.
cafe.
Another question is administrative. I noticed you're increasing administrative budget. Do you get any funds from the state for administrative staff?
We do, and this year's increase is related to payouts for Oh, sorry. Yeah. We had a slight increase because we'll have a retiring president, so we have some payout related to that, so that's the bulk of that increase. But we do have state funds and county funds that would support that.
I notice in here, safety, I'm looking at a line where you don't have anything.
Yes, sir, that's because in this year's budget, we were funded $150,000, and we are currently in progress on that project that will install automatic exterior door lockdown campus-wide. So we started on that project just a couple of weeks ago, and we'll have it finished by the end of this fiscal year. So, yes, and that does include building
So
C
that's
to early
in,
college.
that's in your 18-19 budget?
That is correct. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So that'll allow us,
That was the one where they asked for a 2-year, and once we got prices in, we decided to fund it all in 1 year because it saved quite a bit of money by doing that. I think that's correct, isn't
that
it?
is correct. Mhm.
Is it?
Other commissioners have questions? Just curiosity, not really questioning the request, but on the janitorial, do y'all do it all with your own employees, or do you do contract services?
All in-house,
Okay.
no contract.
Has it ever been looked at to possibly do it with contract, or you just feel better with it in-house?
We did, about 3 or 4 years ago, investigate that, and cost-wise, it was best to keep it in-house.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Dr. Carver?
If I might, we got one other little item, and it's a kind of a special thing, and an asterisk, and I'm not sure where to put it, and it's a joint request. It's a joint request between the school system and the community college. I don't know whose budget it's going to end up in, but we want to do $21,000 worth of improvements to City High, our partnership in a technical high school, to put a bay door in to a room to have another applied engineering lab. So if it goes in our budget, okay. If it goes in the school system's budget, okay. But it's around, and Shannon, I hate to put you on the spot back there. I think you estimated around $21,000 for those improvements to City High.
And that's not included in any figure total that we have?
That's not included in anybody's budget. It's a floating figure right now. But
Okay, all right. Questions, board members?
I don't have a question, but I've got a couple of comments. I just want to say that it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you, Dr. Carver. I could say a lot about you, but I think how you strike me is you strike me as a visionary person. You strike me as a very intelligent person, but more importantly, you strike me as a great people person. And this college is going to miss Bill Carver, and I thank you for what you do, and I'm just proud to have been associated with you, sir.
thank you, Mr. Outlaw. You embarrassed me a little bit, but thank you.
That's a good embarrassment. Other, Ms. Wells, what would you say? Oh,
I mean every word of that. I highly value the friendship and relationship I have with you.
Thank you, sir.
other questions, comments? Finished up, Dr. Carver? Any other comments, sir?
No, sir.
All right. Of course, you realize we are accepting y'all's budget request tonight. Our board is still, for lack of a better word, preparing sausage on all of our budget requests. We've got a couple more meetings. We've got through quite a bit of it, but we'll be meeting pretty soon in May to finalize our budget, and I think the manager plans to present it May 20th is what I understand, as long as we cooperate with him to get that done. So we greatly appreciate you being here tonight, appreciate the use of the facilities, and as Commissioner Outlaw said, appreciate your 32 years of service to Nash County. Thank you, sir. I've got a break on my agenda now. Does anybody need to take that break, or are we okay to keep moving? What's your pleasure? Dan, does that mean keep moving? Anybody object to keep moving? All right, at this time then, Chairman Lamb, I'll turn it over to you for y'all's budget presentation, ever how you wish to handle that.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Davis. At this time, I'd like to turn the budget presentation over to Dr. Jeffries and Sheila Wallace.
Good evening, Commissioners, Board of Education. Thank you for this opportunity to present the Nash-Rocky Mount Public Schools Board Budget Proposal. Wanting to take your job, Dr. Carver. Want to open with just a few housekeeping items. If you will make notes of the questions that you have and reference the slides on which those questions reside, you'll get some general reminders as we go through. Mrs. Wallace and I would like to take all questions at the end of the presentation, if you would be gracious enough to comply. Would like to open celebrating the spirit of collaboration and partnership between the two boards. 2018-19 benefited our students greatly in the spirit of that collaboration, specifically the investment by the Board of County Commissioners in expanding our offerings and renovating early college, high school. Those funds have gone a long way to providing us with a first-class educational environment. So I want to extend, on behalf of the Board of Education, again, our sincere appreciation and thank you for all the students that it impacts now and that it will impact in the future. A similar endeavor was our partnership on pursuing capital funds. A grant opportunity presented itself, and in partnership, our boards were able to secure $10 million in grant funds with a commitment of matching from the Board of Commissioners. So we have the funds in play for a $20 million facility which will again benefit our children. So I'm truly appreciative of the spirit of collaboration between our two boards. I'd like you to reference the one-pager that was handed out with our materials. NRMPS 2018-19 staffing eliminations. While we've had some successes, we've also had some challenges. The budgetary climate this year led us early on to identify some position eliminations. Those eliminations occurred in the communications department, our finance department, central office administrators, communities and schools administrators and support specialists, an assistant principal position, and human resource position. The total eliminations for this year are 10 positions. In preparation for the budget presentation for this evening, our interim chief financial officer, Mrs. Wallace, conducted meetings and completed those with each individual department lead. During those meetings, she was intentional in exploring potential savings and cuts for the upcoming year. She reconciled year-to-date spending. She identified all contracts and grants for the department, while also identifying the life of the contract and grant and the date of end. She conducted multiple meetings with our technology lead, specifically focusing on cleared contracts, dates to clear, and the actual end dates of every current contract. Along with these additional controls, she conducted a review of 3 years of trend data in preparing for the composition of this evening's budget presentation. In reviewing the state planning allocation, we anticipate $1.4 million in increases for local funding due to salary and benefits and impacts to local supplement. A word of caution for this year, our budget process is a different year because our Governor Cooper, now has veto authority. And in the event that there's an impasse in our budget process, which we hope does not occur, but we would revert to our base funding for the previous year. So the operations, until the impasse is resolved, would be the base funding for 18-19. And that would be recurring only. And it's a matter of note because there are funding items in the educational line that are non-recurring, so that would be an impact potentially. As you're aware, the vision of the Nash-Rocky Mount Board of Education is ensuring bright and prosperous futures for all students by deliberately and intentionally providing rigorous, relevant instruction in every classroom every single day. Our budget process is guided by the North Carolina Fiscal Budget Control Act. It identifies May 6th as the date that the Board of Education must approve the 2019-2020 budget. May 15th, the Board of Education must forward an approved budget to the Board of Commissioners. And July 1st is identified as the date where the Board of Commissioners can take action. This year's budget calendar, our process started March 19th with the review and approval by the Finance Committee and a full review by the full Board of Education and approval on April 1st. February through April, Cabinet and myself conducted a budget review. We engaged in small group budget revisions and edits on March 19th. We also approved the budget presentation for this evening on April 29th. We're here this evening on April 30th with our first of two presentations, with the second being May 13th in partnership with Edgecombe Board of Commissioners. Slide 5 references the controls that our interim CFO engaged in. Again, exploring potential savings was the key, making sure we reconcile year-to-end spending and identifying the end dates for all contracts. For several years, our district has confronted a mounting challenge as it relates to our budget. Some of those concerns are no additional revenue, salary increases, which also have an impact on the local budget and local supplements, limited flexibility as a result of legislative changes, impacts at the federal level, specifically in Title II dollars, which are designed to target improving teacher quality. Based on trend data, we fully anticipate another reduction in this area. The forecast is unclear as it relates to Title I funds. The impact has yet to be determined. We have ever-growing technology needs, and elementary security is an area of focus, which I will go into more detail later. At this point in time, I'll ask Mrs. Wallace to come up and walk through our proposal.
Good afternoon. These next few slides, I will walk you through the revenues and the actual expenditures that we're proposing for the 1920 school year. Beginning with the state public school revenue, we're proposing for the 1920 school year approximately $99 million. For the local budget, we are proposing $23 million. Federal grants, we're proposing approximately $11 million. Capital outlay, $1.5 million. Child Nutrition Enterprise Fund revenue, $9.5 million. Donations, grants, and reimbursement revenue, $1.4 million. Nash and Edgecombe County fines and forfeitures, $440,000. which brings us to a grand total of revenues, $147 million. If you move to slide 8, these are the staff and budget assumptions for the 1920 school year. The salary recommendation for the certified staffing is projected at a 7% increase. The salary recommendation for the classified staffing is projected at an increase of 3%. Moving to the benefit section, the Social Security amount at 7.65%. There is no projected increase, and it will remain the same for the 1920 school year. Retirement benefit line item. In the 18-19 school year, it was 18.44% per employee. It is projected to increase to 20.43%. The total projected increase is 1.99%. The hospitalization costs per employee for the 18-19 school year, $6,104. It will increase to $6,349 with a projected increase of $245 per employee. The projected increase brings us to 1.4 million. This anticipated increase is comprised of salaries and benefits proposed by the state. If you move to slide 9, state funding. The North Carolina General Assembly approves a budget during the summer of each year. The North Carolina Department of Public Instruction distributes the budget to school districts using formulas based on the number of schools, students, membership, wealth, and the size of the district. If you move to slide 10, the state funds, please note that the state funds are received in 3 basic types of allotment. One is the position allotments. Those categories include teachers, school building administration, instructional support personnel. We also receive funding and dollar allotments. That includes teacher assistants, textbooks, central office administration, classroom materials, supplies, and equipment. The categorical allotments is based on the number of pupils identified and must operate within the funds allotted annually. That includes the at-risk students, children with disabilities, low wealth funding, disadvantaged student supplement funding, and non-instructional support personnel like transportation. If you move to slide 11, I'm not going to walk you through each of these, but I am going to select a few of these line items and explain them a little more detailed for you. These are the projected state expenditure budgets. If you look at PRC 001, which is the classroom teachers, this area is increased due to the approved HB bill, which impacts the students' teacher ratio in grades K through 3. They're projecting that we will have smaller classroom sizes in those areas. If you come down to PRC 003, non-instructional support personnel, that dollar amount is pretty much consistent based on the number of employees that we have. If you come down to PRC 007, instructional support personnel, that includes your nurses, guidance, social workers, and media. We're not anticipating any losses there. If you come down to PRC 0113, career and technical education, that includes your staff, program, and other support measures. If you move to slide 12, I would like to bring to your attention PRC 031, which is the low-wealth counties. This is a statewide poverty initiative, and what typically happens, the funds are divided among the poverty counties, and these have been previously identified, and we receive the amount based on our number of students in our per pupil allotments. If you come down to 130, PRC 130, which talks about the textbook funds. The textbook funds will not be moved this year. They will have to be used for textbooks solely because this is the year that we adopt a new textbook. The total projected budget for the 18-19 school year, $94 million. For the 19-20 proposed budget school year, we have $99 million. And please note, if you have any questions, just make a notation of the page number and we'll make sure to address them. Slide 13. The local current expense and donations, grants, and reimbursement funds pays the following expenses. It assists with salaries and benefits, local salary supplements, supplies and materials, transfer to charter schools, utilities, and maintenance. Slide 14, the projections for the 19-20 current expenses of revenues. Nash County appropriation, $20 million. Edgecombe County appropriation, $2.1 million. City of Rocky Mount appropriation, $417,000. Edgecombe County fines and forfeitures, $40,000. Nash County fines and forfeitures, $400,000. Grand total of revenues, $23 million. Slide 15. This brings us to the local budget by program. Again, I will choose a few of these to address more detail. The PRC 001, classroom teachers and local supplements. Adjustments were made based on the 3 years of trend data that we have received in local funding. If you come down to PRC 005, School Building Administration, that's for principals and assistant principals and their supplements. We currently fund 5 out of the budget, and adjustments have been made accordingly. If you come down to PRC 036, transfer to charter schools. This is projected to decrease, but we will not have those final numbers, and it will be reconciled during the 20 and 40-day numbers identified by the state. Slide 16. If you look at PRC 061, classroom supplies, it's allotted to the schools by ADM. This has been projected as a decrease due to the proposal from the state superintendent to provide funds to every teacher designated solely for supplies. You come down to PRC 803, utilities. It's really difficult to project and pinpoint an actual amount at this time due to the ongoing changes in cost for local and national trends. Slide 17. PRC 840, athletics and student activities. The supplements will not be impacted for the coaches. We have looked at partnerships, rental agreements, and going to make wiser decisions in order to try to reduce funding in that area. PRC 862, This is our student information system. A lot of software comes from this line item. We're undecided about movement at the state level at this point. That's why we did not adjust the 1920 proposed budget accordingly. The total projected current expense budget, the 1819 proposed amount was at $26.8 million. The 1819 year-to-date as of 4/1/19, we're at $20.2 million. The 1920 proposed budget is $23.3 million. Slide 18. This outlines the projected 1920 donations and grant revenues. Driver's education fees are itemized at $28,000. ROTC program reimbursement, $200,000. Non-restricted Medicaid, $90,000. Federal impact, it highlights the amount that we receive from the federal government based on the number of students that reside in federal properties, or it can come from parents that are employed through the military or uniformed services. But the students must reside in our district and be enrolled at our schools. If you move to slide 19. I want to highlight the miscellaneous revenue. That's projected at $23,000. It includes rebates, refunds, donations, as well as some surplus equipment that we may sell on GovDeal. The total projected revenue is $1.4 million. Slide 20. The combined local revenues. The local revenue current expense is 23.5. Donations and grants, 1.4. Total projected revenues, approximately 25 million. This moves us to the capital outlay revenue. Slide 21. Nash County appropriated for the 18-19 school year, $1.3 million. For the 19-20 school year, we're projecting the same amount of $1.3. Edgecombe County for the 18-19 school year, $170,000. If we go back to previous years, the amount that we have received was $145, so we projected at that amount for the 19-20 school year. The total for the 18-19 school year is $1.5, 67, and for the 19-20 school year, $1.541. Slide 22. This is a rough estimate of how these capital outlay expenditure funds will be used. It gives you a description of each line item. However, Mr. Davis will work through the facilities committee to present school needs and amend this appropriately according to the needs of the schools. But it's outlined and the total amount is 1.5.
As I shared, the concerns have been pretty consistent as it relates to our budgetary environment. This year, we are focusing on two budget priorities. The Board of Education, in response to significant challenges confronting our district, established two priorities for the 2019-2020 budget cycle. The first of which was to protect the classroom, meaning the goal is to keep the impact of the classroom teachers is to be held to a minimum. Goal number 2, ensure increased student safety. Public advocacy this year has identified an increased need for additional equipment and personnel at our elementary sites. The Board of Education has been presented with several requests at board meetings, at district parent advisory committee meetings, to explore additional school resource officers and video surveillance equipment at our elementary schools. This year, the only request for new funding is to support school safety. First of which is support in the form of school resource officers. We're presenting 2 options for the Commissioner's consideration, the first of which is a 3-year phase-in, with the second being a 4-year phase-in. As you're aware, we have 16 elementary schools. We're only requesting support for 15 because we have plans to implement a pilot for the 1920 academic year with one of our local municipalities' law enforcement agencies. If a 3-year option is approved, it would mean adding 5 SROs per year, with the total investment being $1.6 million. If a more gradual addition is selected, the 4-year option, it would mean adding 4 SROs in years 1, 2, and 3, and the final 3 in year 4. For video surveillance equipment, we're proposing a 3-year phase-in. We piloted at Swift Creek Elementary with exterior cameras only. The investment was $3,800. This is a sound investment because no maintenance is required. These are IP cameras, so it benefits us. There are no adjustments to brick and mortar. And in the event that we have to move some of these cameras, we can do so with consolidation on the horizon. The pilot at Swift Creek costs us $3,800. A more prudent estimate is $4,500. The cost depends on the number of exterior angles per campus. We're requesting a 3-year phase-in, which would mean 5 cameras per year, or 5 sets of cameras per year, for an investment of $22,500 per year, bringing the total investment for video surveillance $67,500 over a 3-year period. If approved, the entire investment, including increased SROs and video surveillance equipment at our elementary sites, would be $1,741,000. At this point in time, we'll entertain any questions. You want to sit with your notes?
Mr. Belfield.
I have several questions. First, I'll start with communities in school. I noticed that you're cutting administration and you have 1 vacancy. Have you explored the possibility that that could be a private partnership there in funding communities in schools? It appears to me, because I have worked in it, and I have seen some good results of it. And the first thing popped in my mind is this going to weaken it by doing cutting?
That is an excellent recommendation, Commissioner. These are cuts that have already taken place. This is at the beginning of this year. Our Communities in Schools initiative is funded by an additional $1.5 million in grants that were secured under my leadership. So we've expanded those services significantly. But once those grants sunset, meaning those funds go away, we have to make adjustments according and in alignment with the funding that we have available.
Well, what about local private partnership in funding?
We're working every day. The executive director for Communities in Schools, Ms. Tanisha Cameron Cole, and I are working every day to see if we can explore more partnerships to increase funding. And the board for the local affiliate are working aggressively to support it as well.
The next question, I've heard it argue both ways. Is it more efficient or cheaper to contract custodial work or have your own staff?
That short answer to your question is, it depends. There are options where you can find efficiencies by outsourcing, but I'll speak specifically to our district. I inherited a system where we had a dual funding piece, meaning we outsource a portion of our workforce, and we kept grandfathered, if you will, another portion with the plan for them to phase out through natural attrition and retirement, and which point it would be fully funded through outsourcing. You were here and I wasn't, but I imagine that there was some considerable growing pains for the district during that time. So we don't look at that lightly, and we understand that any mention of that can cause some concerns. Right now, we are holding to the original commitment that the Board of Education invested in.
Another question, I believe at the last board meeting, school board meeting I attended, it was a comment about resources, lack of resources, maybe textbooks. All your funding for textbooks come from the state?
We received 550,000 allocations specifically for textbooks, and this year we went through a rigorous curriculum adoption where we're adopting and making adoptions in all content areas over the next 4 or 5 years. So 100% of that allocation will go towards supporting those curricular resources. We've historically used that to support our one-to-one initiative, but the next 4 years or 5 years will be dedicated specifically to textbooks. And I'm at a loss. I don't know who made the comment you're referencing.
It was one person I heard say that. But does textbook allotment, that include technology?
It does not.
It's no to that, okay. Testing. I noticed you had in your budget a certain amount for testing. The General Assembly is thinking, because it's not law yet, thinking about reducing testing. Is this end of grade that you're referring to here, or is it testing through the school year?
It's all of the assessments, both state and locally, that we've administered over the previous years. You're 100% right. There is a great deal of discussion about decreasing the amount of testing, but we haven't gotten actionable language about what that will mean or the funding impacts. Once we get that guidance, we'll of course make adjustments so that we're in compliance.
The other question another question I have is ROTC. Do you have ROTC in all the high schools in Nash County?
At Mr. Thompson, our representation of JROTC in all of our high schools?
Yes, except the innovative high school.
All except the brand new high school, as City High.
Okay. Training.
I'm sorry,
I
did you
hear
say
so
trade or
much
training?
training for your teachers. Do you do that locally, or you just encourage them maybe with scholarships to attend some college or university for additional training?
We do it any way that we can, Commissioner. We use federal funds, we use state allocations, and we use grant funds to support professional development for teacher leaders and school level leaders and central office leaders. And I appreciate you raising that point because there's been considerable discussion about our use, our re-implementation of the coaching force. When I assumed this position, the district had been identified as a low-performing district. We're still working every day to make improvements to remove that stigma from the district. But the most current research supports that you can focus on curriculum, which we're doing. I'm very pleased by the curriculum adoption led by Dr. Cockrell and his team. But curriculum won't do it alone. You've got to focus on professional development. In your scenario, you reference sending folks out. And that's essential if it's of quality. But there's a stronger component in that professional development has to be job embedded. The coaches that we've selected were rigorously screened to be identified as master teachers who have the potential to grow more master teachers. 1/3 of our workforce come from non-traditional paths, meaning they didn't start out planning to be educators. Their heart and their mind led them to us, and we're very appreciative of them. But not having the history and the formal education in pedagogy, the science of teaching, they struggle. And some of them are stars. I don't want to cast a broad brush, but having job-embedded coaches, master teachers with a track record of success is research-based and supports their development. If we're going to move our district to a district of excellence, it's going to be through our teachers and school-level professionals.
Well, that's why I've always, and I know I've said this with the Board of Commissioners, with the county staff, individual professional development plan. And I just think that every teacher ought to have it. To me, it's been a proven track record. And I'm wondering, do you all emphasize that are required?
The state evaluation system is designed to be exactly that, an individual growth plan for every professional in the system.
Okay, my final two questions probably doesn't relate to your budget, but homework. I know things have changed, technology and all that, from the experiences I had when I was in school, plus when I was working, different. I see a lot of students out up to 9 o'clock playing, and it just keep running through my mind, do they have homework? Now, I spoke to one or two one time. They said, oh, I did mine at school. I'm just wondering if enough emphasis is placed on homework. Once you get introduced to something, you need to look at it before you get back, in my opinion, before you get back to the class the following day. Your teacher introduce you to a new chapter or whatever it may be. You ought to have the opportunity to review it. You may have questions the next day, something that you don't understand. Homework, is that still in the playbook?
Homework is still a viable part of our academic core. The best design is homework that extends learning that occurred in the classroom. Because we serve a really diverse community, there are different levels of support that our students may have at home to help them with those, but I don't know that homework will ever be equivalent to a curfew to keep folks at home, and there's always the option of doing it or not doing it.
That's the parents' responsibility.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I
We support
understand
them
that.
with that. Yes, sir.
The last one, and then I'm gonna shut up because I apologize for taking up so much time. But these are some things that writing skills, reading and writing. There, in my opinion, and I haven't made no study, made any counts or anything scientifically about it, but I've heard some read. I mean, coming out of school, they just don't, in my opinion, don't read at the grade level that they graduated from. And it makes it difficult. And some of them are admitted into college. The reading and writing skills. I've heard one professor say this to me last year. Said, I got a class full of students with poor writing skills. And said, and that's something that I got to work on that I shouldn't have to do. They help them, encourage them to improve their writing skills. I'm sure you're most likely in the school system, you are concerned about that, and you're probably doing something about it, but I just wanted to speak to it.
I appreciate the question, sir. Literacy is a point of focus for our district. The connection that you identified with higher ed, Dr. Carver and Nash Community College are really robust partners in making sure that we prepare students with the marketable skills to be successful in higher ed. There is some current developing research about the societal impacts of social media and distilling everything down to 140 characters or so, and how it may be having an impact on how we're illiterate as a nation. But there was a time when the mark of a learned person was their use of language, appropriate use of language. And I happen to be a lover of words. I'm kidded by Commissioner Davis often about my love of words, but that is always going to be a focus, because the key to success is our students being able to read well, write well, and speak well as they move out into society.
Comments well taken.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the questions.
Other commissioners with questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Jeffries, can you please speak a little bit about your test school where you had the video surveillance at Swift Creek?
Can you say that one more time?
The test program that you had at Swift Creek
The
Elementary.
video surveillance pilot?
Yes.
Absolutely. Mr. Davis, would you mind? I don't want to put you on the spot, so I guess I do want to put you on the spot. Can you come up and give a little background?
Sure. Basically, we got cameras at all our middle and high schools. Right now, we're looking at adding these to all our elementary. All our middle and highs currently have what we call analog. We've got one DVR and a line to each camera. These are IP cameras, so that we can go to each switch in a school, pull a line and go directly back to wherever we want to shoot video. We even send it all the way back to central office where we can look at it there. Again, they are IP cameras. We're just getting the exterior of the campuses so that we can see the entire exterior of the campus, playgrounds, parking lots, things of that nature.
Thank you.
Other questions, Sue? What, other commissioners with questions? I have just a couple. You mentioned when you first started talking, Dr. Jeffers, veto power by the governor.
Yes, sir.
And I might have understood what you said, but would you walk through that again with a little more explanation of what you were meaning by that?
In the past, the budget process has always been transactional, meaning there's some negotiation. With the change in the structure of the legislature and that being a new dynamic, we're being very prudent in that we may not have a resolution in the event that that's enacted and it'll go directly to, because we don't have a shutdown, so to speak. we would revert to the previous year's budget. Mrs. Wallace and I have been very intentional in planning for that eventuality. It's not that we're hopeful of it, but those have been from state associations, from the superintendent's associations, asking us to be mindful that that could be an eventuality for this budget cycle.
So in that comment, you're speaking of what the state budget does.
Yes, sir.
Nothing to do with the agreement between school board and the commissioners.
No, sir.
Okay, I've got it now, thank you. And on page 21, there was a mention, and it's a change in the percentage of capital funds supplied by Edgecombe County. And I would think that would be a constant based on ADM. So, and I'm just wondering why we got that change. Are we trying to correct something from the past that we had in error, or do you project that much change in 1 year? That's a pretty significant change because it goes from about 12% down to about 10%.
Basically, I'm not sure, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Basically, I went back and I looked at the trend data for the past 3 or 4 years of what we had received from Edgecombe County. For the 18-19 school year, we received more funding. So I went back to what we had typically got because I could not find anything to support why we received more funding last year, based on the documents that had been left for me. So I went back to what we had received in the previous years and allocated for that. If we get more, it'll be a bonus, but we're just planning for that amount right now.
We have more specifics in a joint meeting with Edgecombe County representation, Nash County representation. The projections we receive from Mr. Lamb's staff will be the ones that we plan moving forward, and that's directly related to ADM. There are about 30 students who are tuitioned from Edgecombe County that we wouldn't count twice, so we were able to clear that up.
But my understanding, primarily for you, Donald, is that it is going to be a constant based on ADM, and it's really nothing moving about it. It is what it is. Is that not correct?
The capital can adjust due to debt service that the Nash County pays, but it is based on a formula. So the calculations are all based on the formula that we have, and it's driven by ADM.
And we meet every year, being the financial staff, and y'all come to those agreements.
That is correct.
Okay, I just not sure, Ms. Wallace, to what way you got your number would.
I just took it
I understand what you
from the
did.
previous budgets.
Gotcha, okay. Well, it should be a given, whatever the number is based on the formula. And then, on page 25, well, first of all, I'm gonna go back to page 8.
Did you say 8, sir?
Page 8, yes, sir. And again, addressed to Ms. Wallace probably, is that $1.4 million, what part of that is local funding, or is all of this state funding?
The local funding is included with the supplements because we pay all students, all staffing supplements.
Out of local funds?
Yes, sir.
I realize that, but is that what the 1.4 number is?
That's the overall projected increase for the state and the local supplements.
So there's not a separation number there of what is state and what is local?
I can certainly get that for you,
Okay,
but
I
I
think
combined all
I'd
of
like
that
to see
together.
that.
Okay, no problem.
When you get a chance to do that. Because we made the statement, Dr. Jeffers, that the only increase was, and then you went into a page later, but yet I see a couple other places where there is potential increases, unless you're just decreasing your total request and not paying attention to the former pages in here, which may be what you're doing.
No, sir. My statement is about the only request for new money.
Right.
We typically embedded that increase in our projection. We've not done that this year. We've kept it inconsistent with 3 years' worth of trend data, what the budget was, and the only request for additional funding and increase, we're not asking for that increase, we're asking for elementary safety.
Okay, so the statement really about the only increase is really based on new types of increases.
Yes, sir.
Not necessarily dollars.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I've got you there now. And then on page 25, the request for school safety. My understanding is that the SROs in the high schools as well as the middle schools are a total funding item by the state in one type or another, and does not come out of local funding.
Correct.
But it appears you are asking potentially for the county to get involved in supplying SROs when it is known that the state provides all of that funding currently. Are you making, in any way through your association, a similar request to the state for SROs for elementary schools?
The only vehicle for making that request is through an application, a grant application, and one of the components of that grant application is a one-to-one match. We don't have the funds to pursue that as an option, and through great deliberation this year in public discourse, this has been a point of emphasis for the public. And the commitment of my board was that we would bring that to the budget process for consideration.
Okay. And of course, there is some movement in the House to look into SROs for the elementary schools. And I think that bill, if I remember right, it's HB 74. I don't know that I have that number right, but I have been speaking to our local representatives about where that stands. So that potential to at least start that is there, and we'll just have to continue monitoring that. But
That's encouraging news.
but you know, we learned many years ago, anytime the county buys into funding an item that the state may have on their plate immediately gets cleaned and they let the counties take care of it. So our board is just gonna be real careful in where those SROs, it's certainly not a question of need, it's a question of it's normally a state-funded item. And of course, it's once you get it, it's a total reoccurring expense. It's not like your cameras
That's
where
correct.
we get out of it at some point. It's reoccurring, and it's reoccurring at a greater amount from that point on because of what you see happen to benefits and other things. So
Yes, sir.
I hope your association is also working through the state to trying to get that SRO funding moved down to the elementary schools as well, or hopefully start that process. But, you know, this is an item that certainly when we get back into our budget meetings, we would certainly look at as well as the other things that are on here. The cameras, may be for Mr. Davis, I'll let you direct that, but have we ever looked at a cost in elementary schools? I hear our sheriff sometimes talk about a camera system that would also do outside as you have proposed here, but quite a few on the inside, which of course, is there any studies or have y'all looked at what that cost point would be to just put a very high-end camera system in our elementary schools, potentially in lieu of SROs, simply because it is a non-reoccurring cost, and you know at some point you've only got some type of maintenance cost. But is that number available, or have y'all ever looked at that?
We have not explored internal. As you know, our process of target hardening and the commissioners have been tremendous in supporting with our IED doors district-wide, so you all have made similar investments. But target hardening works from the outside in, and we were hoping that if we could have consistency in those sites, that we would then begin to explore. But we have a standing safety committee that is comprised of county law enforcement officials along with the municipalities representation that works with Assistant Superintendent Farrell that would be guiding in terms of distribution of resources. So that would be a point of exploration in the future.
All right. And my last question, you mentioned some type of pilot program. I made the assumption that maybe it's with Rocky Mountain. Could you tell us a little bit about that in one of the elementary schools?
It's actually not with Rocky Mount, sir, but
Okay.
if you will allow me the discretion, I haven't fully briefed the board on that one. We're gonna have a presentation to the board about what that pilot would be, but I commit to getting that information to both boards in an expeditious manner.
That would be fine. I thank you, sir. Other commissioners with questions?
Got a couple of questions and some comments. First, I want the school board and Dr. Jeffries to understand that I don't pay a lot of attention to federal or state money. I look at local money. I pay attention to federal or state when I think it's impacting local. So with that said, I've looked at this budget, pages 15 through 17, and I've broken it out into two sections. Program Code 001, Classroom Teachers and Supplements, and then I want to look at all the other codes as a group. I'm going to actually extract some of those codes and highlight some things about those codes. So my first questions would be, in the Classroom Teachers and Supplements, in the 18-19 budget, which I'm referring back to the budget here, that the long detailed budget that we received. If you look at the numbers for Program Code 001, the original budget for 18-19 was $5.279 million. That budget was revised to $7.247 million. That number included 15 classroom teachers. If you extrapolate that number on out and look at annualized, we're looking at spending $7.761 million, and you're asking for $5.275 million in 19 and 20. So the first question is, do we have any locally funded teachers, classroom teachers, not coaches, not anything else, but classroom teachers in the 1920 budget for Program Code 001?
We do, sir. We have approximately 15, Mrs. Wiles.
Okay.
And just for clarity, the $7.2 million that you referenced in the 18-19 proposed
Yes, sir.
embedded our request for the increase last year. We have not included that in this year's projection. And if you look at the center column, the actual year-to-date spending is in Atunis at $5.8 million.
Well, you spent $5.821 million in 9 months. If you annualize that, that's $7.761 million. So that's pretty close. Well, it's actually $500,000 over your 18-19 proposed. All right, the second question on Program Code 001 is, if your 18-19 budget...
And just for clarity, it's not over our 18-19 proposed. If you see the 7.2,
Yes, sir.
that's including, last year's projection was including the increase, which was not granted by the board. But if you're referencing our proposed for 1920, it is above the proposed for 1920.
Well, I'm looking at 3 lines. I'm looking at 18-19.
Correct.
I'm looking at 19-20, and I'm looking at annualized. I just got the annualized today. I took it off the website. So if you've spent $5.821 million through April 1, that's 75% of your year, 9 of 12 months. So if you annualize that 9 months to 12 months, then that's $7.761 million. So are you saying you're not going to spend any more?
What we're saying is we're going to be moving teachers to federal funds that we can support. The challenge for us with the shortfall is, as state increases occur, we have to make up that difference someplace.
I understand
We've not
that.
typically, if you'll allow me to finish, sir, we've not typically gotten that from the county commissioners. We've been spending down fund balance in the past, over a 3-year period, spending down fund balance to make up that difference. Moving forward, we believe it's more prudent to focus on what is in alignment with what we've received and then make adjustments. We've engaged in significant transfers and reversions this year, and a part of our plan for sustainability is to move those classroom licensed teachers onto more sustainable federal funds.
You done?
Yes, sir.
My question is simply, you're at $5.821 million through April 1.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to spend any more money between April 1 and July 1? Because that number, if you do what you have done, it will annualize out at $7.761 million. That's the question. Okay, you can answer that whenever it's.
Well, Mrs. Wallace is prepared to answer.
Okay.
you.
Okay, And Mr. Outlaw, if I understand your question, teachers are paid 10 months, first of all. And yes, we will spend probably what you are projecting. However, that funding may be moved to other areas.
Well, it's got to be moved to other areas.
Exactly.
I mean, it
Exactly.
feels like you got a choice.
We have to.
All right. The second question is exactly that. How do you plan to manage a reduction? If you look at the 7.247 million in 18-19, and you look at the 19-20, 5.275 million, that's a difference of almost 2 million. How do you plan to manage that $2 million? Are you saying you're going to move classroom teachers to federal dollars?
We've already been engaged in that process and making those moves, sir.
How many-
That was a part of our reduction.
How many are you moving?
We'll get
Because-
that information to them, the specific numbers that have already been converted, Mrs. Wallace.
Do you know that number, Ms. Wallace?
I don't have it right in front of me, but we have moved several already, but I assure you that I will get that information.
Well, I want to tell you
and share
that,
the
I don't,
accurate numbers.
can you tell me what the average teacher pay is without supplement,
30, including benefits,
including benefits?
without
Because if you move teachers to federal dollars, you're going to move their pay and their benefits. You cannot move their supplement because that's paid from local funds. So what would be your average teacher salary with benefits in the system? Let's just say it's 55,000, I don't know. But if you
It'd be
move,
52,000 for a
Okay.
teacher with 0 years
I'm gonna
of
do the
experience.
55 because that makes my math easier in my
Okay,
head.
that's fine.
So if you do 15 teachers at 55,
Right,
then that's 825,000. You're looking at almost 2 million. So you're going to have to move about 40 or so teachers to manage that 1.9 million excess in your spending. Okay, I'm just bringing that up as something to look at,
But
okay?
that's not accurate with the reverses. We've already made these transfers. The gap that we have right now, Mr. Outlaw, is about $800,000 as we've discussed.
All I know is I'm looking at your numbers, Dr. Jeffers. This is what I got from you. I didn't make this up.
No, sir, but we've already identified that there's a flaw in you projecting us spending out through July. We don't pay teachers on 12-month schedules.
That's
We
what I
pay them on
asked.
10-month schedules.
That's what I asked you, sir. What were you going
And
to be
that's what we're
spending?
sharing with you.
Okay, then we're good. You've got 7.247, so you're not going to spend that 7.247.
No, sir.
Okay, what are you going to spend? Are you going to spend the 5,279? That was your budget. That was your original budget, and that ties very nicely to the detailed budget that you gave us last year, which is about 20 pages.
You're asking what our year end will be for that category of 001?
Yes, sir, is it going
Once
to
we
be?
get to that point, we'll be comfortable reporting those numbers out to both boards.
All right. All right, I'm gonna move to the rest of the budget. All other program codes. This is the most interesting 3 pages that I have looked at in quite a while. Across the board, after code 001, I'm talking about across the board, all codes, and yes, I said all codes, have been reduced by the same percentage. Do the math when you have time.
7.9.
7.92%. That includes some that you have no control over at all, and some that you have very little control over. A good example would be with utility cost. Good luck at getting a 7.92% reduction on your utility cost, and if you look at your annualized number on utility cost, which is over 4.8 million, you're looking at a 20+% reduction in utility cost. I would just want to highlight a couple of these other program codes, your numbers I'm looking at. I'm not looking for a response this evening. If you've got one, that's fine. I'm just highlighting some things that got my attention, and I assume it got your attention as well. This budget is all over the place. It's 7.92% across the board down, but when you look at annualized, I mean, it's all over the place. Let's start with PRC 009, Program Code 009, Non-Contributory Benefits. Your 18-19 proposed budget, which all these numbers agree here, $560,745. Your annualized number is $327,000. So if you spend for the remainder of the year like you have spent for the first 9 months of the year, you're going to spend $327,000, but you have got a proposed budget for 19 and 20 of $516,000. Next, 013. That's Career Technical Education Local Program Support.
Did you want to say something?
No,
about
sir,
that last
I'm not
statement,
looking
Mrs.
at
Waller?
anything. Would you let me get through it?
I'll let him finish.
Okay.
And I will.
Can I go
Yes,
through it?
sir.
You make notes and
Yes, sir.
you can just respond, okay? All right, 013, you've got an 18-19 budget of 88,827. You've got an annualized number, if you spend for the remainder of the year, again, like you have spent the first 9 months of the year, you're going to spend $16,455. You're asking for $81,789. PRC 036, transfer to charter schools. I just want to know why you would think that that number is going to reduce from 1.6 to 1.433, since that's based on ADM as well, I believe. So are we expecting a reduction in that ADM? PRC 056, transportation, buses. 18-19 proposed budget, $362,000. You've got an annualized number of $508,000. That's what you say. I guess maybe you won't spend that much, but you're budgeting $333,319. Classroom supplies, program code 061, and this is really a tender spot with me. You had a proposed budget in 18-19 of $432,508. You're annualizing out on supplies at under $250,000, but you're budgeting almost $400,000 for 19-20. I hear teachers all the time talk supplies, but you're only spending, it looks like $248,000. Maintenance, boy, this is an interesting one here. Program code 802, I know Mr. Davis will like this one. You've got an 18-19 budget of a little under $4 million. You're annualizing out at almost $4.3 million, but you're budgeting a little under $3.7 million. So I guess everything's good. You got things under control as far as maintenance goes. Utilities, we've talked about. I don't get that one. That's something you have no control over at all. Insurance, PRC 805, 468 budgeted, 595 annualized, 431 19-20 budget. Finance, 815, 785 budgeted, over 100,000, almost, no, 838 annualized, and you're budgeting 723. I don't have many more. Board of Education, 408,000 budgeted, 482,000 annualized, 375,000 requested. System-wide instruction, 898, annualized at 1063, you're requesting 827. Athletics and student activities, 987, you're annualizing at a little over $1 million, you're requesting a little over 900. 850, superintendent's office, that's supplies, travel, membership, and dues. You got a budget of 43, you're annualizing out at almost 69, you're requesting a little under 40. And the last one, 862, student information services, you're budgeted at 134, you're spending 48, and you're requesting 123. So that's the things I saw in the budget, and what was really striking to me about the budget was coincidentally, every line item 7.92%. So from February to tonight, every line item came out at 7.92%.
May I address?
That's amazing.
This
Now, I got-
has been
I've got a couple other things I wanted to mention. If you could make us aware of this. If the Nash Board of Commissioners approves an advance to cover supplemental pay for classroom teachers, which I totally support, and I believe our board totally supports, is this covered in this budget?
The payback, you mean?
The payback. If not, how do you plan to pay it back? That's a question. The last question I've got is, have funds been received from the sale of O.R. Pope and Spalding? If so, how much? How have or are these funds to be used? I think Pope was, both of those schools, that was considerable money. So, Mr. Chairman, that completes my comments. And if school board wishes to respond tonight, or they wish me to provide them with a copy of this and my information, then I'd be glad to do that, and they can respond at their convenience.
I think, the points that Mr. Outlaw are making in summary are, and I wondered the same thing when I went through what I got the other day. I had a little bit of time to spend on it. I just wonder how the budget was prepared, because it just doesn't seem right that everything would be the exact 7.92%. It just looks like you used a constant, it just looks like you backed into a number that was predetermined. But maybe that's not what we done. I guess that's what confuses us. We know how we do our budget, but we certainly don't straight line everything we got from a previous year's allotment. So that's the real question. And as Mr. Outlaw said, if you want to make some comments about it, that would be great. If you need time to make comments about it, that would be understood. So
Well,
turn it back to you, Mr. Judge.
we feel compelled to make some comments.
Okay.
Because there are
Sure.
some flawed assumptions. And I won't speak to all of them, but making the assumption that for example, the superintendent's budget was highlighted, that there's going to be consistent spending for the rest of the year. That's incorrect. That budget supports professional development in our human resources division. It supports book studies for our restart models. All of those purchases have been completed. There won't be any additional spending in that category when we're talking about year to date. We've also, this has been an anomalous year for us, an out of ordinary year, in that we've had to make significant cuts and revisions to classroom supplies. It's been public knowledge that we froze those funds to recapture, to identify, to address the shortfall. So there are some flaws in the assumptions that he's making, but I'll let Mrs. Wallace speak to more, but we will offer, we could get the written document to move forward so that we are comprehensive in our response. We'll address those moving forward.
So what I would like to highlight, first of all, we know this is a proposed budget. When meeting with each department lead, we knew that we were going to have some financial challenges even to get through the end of the year. So instead of attacking one specific department or one specific area, we did try to share the wealth. So when I met with them individually, planning for the 1920 school year, you are correct. We took about an average of about 8% reduction across the board, clearly across the board. meeting with them individually, planning for the upcoming school year, we had those discussions. What can you cut? What can you do without? Or this is what we will have to do without in order to try to balance our budget and stay within the funding sources that you provide us moving forward, hopefully for the 1920 school year. The proposed budget will again be amended and changed once we get the actual percentages from the state. When you look at 01, PRC 01, and a few others when it involves actual personnel. But overall, this is a proposed budget. I'm not sure if I'm fully articulating it correctly to answer your questions, but across the board, everybody was going to have to work with less.
I didn't look at anything other than utilities.
But some may
There's
even
no
fall
way-
below the threshold of the 8%.
Say that again?
Some of these budget or departments may even fall below the threshold of the 8% reduction.
Well, not here, they don't.
Not here, they may not, but when we finalize all of this, we're gonna have to look at what cuts will be made to balance the budget, and that way we will have to possibly add more to the line item like utilities. I know we probably.
Well, I would think you would understand that you're definitely going to have to probably add to utilities as one example.
I do understand that, and I think when I introduced or talked about the utilities, I said it was very difficult at this point to project what our outcome would be at the end of the year.
Well, it's not hard for me to project it in my home. I bet it's, well, that might be funny to you, Dr. Jeffries, but I don't think it's hard.
Your home is one facility, sir. We have more than one in the
I understand that,
system,
sir.
So it's not an apples-to-apples comparison.
I'm not trying to argue with you, sir.
I'm responding to that.
I'm not trying to argue and get your dander
I'm not
up.
trying to argue with you either, sir.
All I'm telling you is that if you have spent X amount of dollars on utilities for 9 months, then chances are very, very strong that you're going to spend comparable amounts for the next 3 months.
But you
That would-
also have to.
That would be accurate if we weren't also engaged in HVAC conversions where we have some savings, but we also had increases that offset that.
Well, I tell you what I'd like to see. What I'd like to see, and I haven't seen it, maybe someone else has seen it, but I would like to see against this budget that you gave us last year, because I can see this in the county. I would like to see what your actual expenditures are for the year against every one of these line items.
I think we've made a commitment to get that
Okay.
to both boards.
Okay, that's what I'd like to see. And I'd also remind you that you were to provide me with a listing of the 15 classroom teachers and the codes associated with those teachers. That's from our last meeting. Since you say you've still got 15 in the budget, then just give me those 15, that'd be great.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Belfield?
Sitting, listening to the comments and knowing how the county commissioners do their budget, it seemed to me it would be a lot of questions that won't have to be asked if we would line item everything and then summary for the different categories, line item, what is, how much for A, how much for B, and how much for C, and total them up. It would be a lot easier for, maybe it would be less questions asked from the Board of Commissioners.
I think the real concern, if I could summarize what Mr. Belfield said and Mr. Outlaw said, is that what we have at this point, we just can't have a lot of comfort level in that that's where you're going to end up at the end of next year. And of course, we know where you're going to end up at the end of this year because you have come to us and showed it to us and asked for assistance. Next year is going to be a little bit harder, whatever our board decides to do between the two boards. But to straight line 95% of the line items that you give us knowing that there got to be all kind of differences in these things, it's just not the way we're used to looking at budgets. We don't get them from the community college like that, and we sure don't get them from our staff like that. We go back and look at it on a line-by-line basis and indeed look at what we actually spent and try to summarize what changes are gonna move forward. But maybe this is something you had to do in haste to get through this meeting. If that's the case, just tell us that, and we understand that, almost. But certainly, this can't be the budget that you expect us to work off of to approve, because we don't have a lot of confidence in it. And is that basically where we are? Commissioner Outlaw knows this stuff much better than I do, 'cause
I don't apologize that my board expects me to look at school budgets
Right.
and come back with some appropriate questions.
Well,
And I
correct.
think these are appropriate.
all right, I understand. But that seems to be where we are, Ms. Wallace and Dr. Jeffers. Okay. Mr. Lamb, you had a question, sir?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments and questions on procedures. I see here the basis that, the baseline that you're using is the 2018-19 proposed budget. I'm assuming that's the original proposed budget, just like this year is the original proposed budget. Is that correct?
This budget was asking
I'm just wondering how y'all go about it. I've been doing county and school budgets since '89, and I'm gonna tell you what I thought the procedure is, and I may be wrong. Y'all pass a budget like you did last night. You present it to us. We give you in our budget, in the budget message and then in the budget ordinance, we give you a certain amount of money. And it's my understanding that, and you say, I think last year you asked for 1.3 more and you were given about 200,000 more. It's my understanding that you come back in July, no later than August, and make adjustments to your budget based on the money from the legislature, money based from the from the feds and from the county commissioners. So this first column, is that the adjusted budget that you passed in July or August when you made?
No, sir, that is the actual numbers that was presented for the proposed budget.
Did you do an adjusted budget?
There was an adjustment budget, but it came later in the school year.
Well, why would that not be presented to us rather than the proposed budget?
Well, because
Of
I'm not
last
for
year.
sure if that actual budget was ever shared with the county commissioners.
We can do that moving
That's not a
forward. We
problem.
haven't typically done
Well,
that.
it would seem to me the last year's proposed budget means nothing because it's not the budget you're working under.
Right.
So I would suggest that in future years that you give us your final adjusted budget as of July or August, whenever you make those adjustments based on your revenues.
Revenue received.
That can happen. That's not a problem.
Another thing is, the buses that you buy this year, 1 year from now, we're gonna be changing the name of the system. And I noticed at the early college announcement, we went there and y'all embedded overhead Nash-Rocky Mount School, and there'll be some cost with changing that. So I would urge you, since we are making that change a year from now, that we not invest a whole lot of dollars with signage, whether on buses or otherwise. It would seem to me you can put Nash County, and it would save us some money down the road.
Respectfully, that would be a Board of Education decision, Mr. Lamb. I think your rationale makes perfect sense, but the Board of Education would have to make that determination.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you.
Can they make that determination until it's official?
When Nash County Schools is not a legal
It's my
entity at this point,
understanding
so.
that you can't do that until the official time and with the law.
Well, at the early college, you didn't have to put anything up there.
Oh, yeah, but
You could have left that off, but now, a year from now, they're gonna have to pull that off, just like at the, our building, our administration building, you can see where the original, name of the building has been adjusted because it was later, named after someone. In October of this year, I put a, article, and I don't believe everything I see in the newspaper, but all due respect. But there was a article where your board unanimously requested that you send a letter to the commissioners, requesting $200,000 for the city high school. Was that letter ever sent? Because I did not receive it, and I didn't know if your board decided not to send it, or, so we never got that request if it was in fact I don't believe I ever got that letter.
You didn't. If you recall, it was a time when we were having the joint meetings, and the reference was that we would like to wait and see. There's a reason why the legislature made that decision, and we don't like to interrupt the decisions that they make. That was just, that came from your board to my board. At that point in time, that request was moved. So it did not come to you.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
you recall those meetings?
I recall the meetings, I don't recall that particular matter. But I might have missed a meeting, so, thank you. And that's all I have.
Other commissioners, Mr. Belfield.
I got one comment now, and that'll be my final. To the
That's your
board,
final?
yeah, to the
You read
board
this
of,
after I will call it.
education. I know you're probably thinking that I'm gonna use the old common term, picking on you. Nash Community College had to go through several years before they got to the point where they were presenting the budget that we didn't have a whole lot of concern, because we really had some strong concerns about the way they were presenting their budget to us. So, it's just the county commissioners, the way we're used to doing the budgets. And we like that line item, as I said earlier, and then something. That's basically where we're going. And it's not a case of we're just going after the school board just for the sake of going after the school board. That's my comment.
Other commissioners wish to say anything? I'd just like to say, before we leave or close it out, I felt real good a week ago about the relationship between the school board and commissioners, and I still feel good. We've made it our goal for the last 2 years. It's on our goal, and we only basically pick 3 things a year that we want to get done. And this was on there last year, and it's on there again this year, is to improve the relationship with us and the school board. We're working on that hard. I sincerely feel it's gotten a lot better. It's got a long way to go, sure, but if we keep working at it, we're gonna get it much better. The people sitting behind me and the other taxpayers in Nash County expect us to work together. And there's just no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that. In fact, somehow, we just must do that. But I think it's trending very well. I've enjoyed a lot of the meetings we had, Dr. Jeffers, the meeting we had last week with you and your chairman and vice chairman and our manager and myself and our vice chairman, Mr. Outlaw. I thought it was one of the best meetings we've ever had. I don't know how you felt when you left that day. But, and then we've had a school meeting since then, of these, I guess y'all call it the school committee. That's what we call it, not the new school committee, but just our school committee. And we had a great meeting over at Donovan's place the other afternoon, and I'm sure y'all get a summary of that if you hadn't already. I'm sure it's coming. But that's the spirit we've got to move forward in, and our questions on the budget, I hope you will take them, very constructive, because when you have a situation like we had back, a month ago, and I don't even want to bring it up, where we had a proposal that just nobody in the county liked, and the commissioners didn't know it was coming, and we kind of got blindsided by it, and we have talked about that, and I think we have an understanding that we'll try our best to prevent that from happening again, that kind of thing, because we're in this thing together. But the budget, as we got it, we just don't have a comfort level that you're gonna be able to match what the proposed budget is with your expenditures, because we don't see anything really of what you're doing on the expenditure side to make it work to this for what you got, because some of these things are so fixed. And it's like our budget at the county, majority of we only have about less than 20% that's flexible. Everything else we're told, here's what you're gonna do. So it's just not that much movement in there. And I think it's just the way it is presented makes it very difficult for us to go into a beginning of a year feeling comfortable that at the end of the year, we're not gonna have another problem like we got at the end of this year. And certainly our Board of Commissioners are willing to help out this year, because the last thing we want to happen is the proposal that potentially was put on the board, or was put on the table. Of course, it was withdrawn very quickly, thank goodness it was. But, that's just where we're at, members of the school board. We somehow want to make this thing work. We all are very serious about getting our school systems better, because we are not in a good way as far as what we're providing for our children. I know there's so many challenges in the area we live in with families and so forth, and we can't fix everything as a joint effort, and certainly the school board can't fix it all. It's going to be a lifelong challenge as long as you serve on the school board, and I appreciate every one of your willingness to serve, quite frankly. I've told the story before. I had aspiration to becoming a politician back as I got near ending and retired, and I talked to my father about it and told him I didn't know whether I wanted to be a school board member or a county commissioner. He said, well, it just depends on whether you want to mess with a man's pocketbook or you want to mess with his children. Just as simple as that. And I chose to mess with his pocketbook, and I think I made the right choice. So, but y'all that chose to be involved in educating children, I appreciate everything you do. But with that said, Dr. Jeffers, we want to leave on very good terms. We got where we are getting better, and somehow we want to do that. Maybe the comments made tonight about the budget and the way it's presented, we can get back to work on it. If any of us can sit down and help in any way, or whatever we can do. We don't want to get in your business, but we're all in a business to providing the school systems as much money as we can, but at the same time, we got to have a return on the investment that we put in it. And I preached enough. I'm probably going to have to sing a certain hymn if I keep talking, so I'll just be quiet. But that's just where our board is. And Mr. Outlaw, I've always asked you to study this thing. Are you all right with the closing comment?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
If my board's fine with it, I'm fine with it.
All right.
I just try to present information as I see it.
Right. I understand.
If I don't understand it, then that's what I want it to be clarified.
Right. Thank you, sir.
We appreciate every question and every point of inquiry this evening from the commissioners. It's our full expectancy that there would be a high level of scrutiny, as there should be. This year, as I shared, has been an anomalous year for us. It's been an atypical year for us. I do know that Chairman Lamb, in his discretion, shared a document that was explicit in over $2 million of reversions that we made to start narrowing, and my assumption was that that had been shared with all of your board. I apologize for making that assumption. But moving forward, if it's the pleasure of the Board of Commissioners and the pleasure of my board, that's the critical point. I'll need that guidance from my board. If they want us to present a line item budget, we haven't done that in the entirety of the time that I've been here, but we can make that adjustment just so that I'll know what's clear, because I serve at the pleasure of the Board of Education, and we want to continue in the spirit of collaboration. I share your sentiment. The last couple of meetings have been very positive, and we don't take any of this personal. It's a process, and you have every right to scrutinize this process as you've done this evening.
Thank you, sir. Anything else a board member on the commissioners wish to say, Ms. Wells?
I think it's one thing that both of us boards want. We want to educate our children, and we're gonna work with you, and you're gonna work with us to make sure we come up with some way we can do it. Because the most important thing we've got is our kids. They've got to have an education. We've got to pay our teachers, we've got to make sure. But those children go to school to get an education, and that's our future. And we're just gonna have to work together, collective, to come up with the best way to educate our kids. That's my,
Thank you, Ms. Wells. We're
That's
on
my
item
soapbox.
10, which is, item 9, which is discussion and other concerns. If it's anything else from our board, and I'll,
that's our boards together gotta do it.
Chairman Lamb, I'll let you ask the same question, sir.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I enjoyed the meeting we had last week. I thought it was a step in the right direction. And it's like I've always, when I told my teachers, I said, if you're in the education and don't learn something each day, you need to quit. And as long as we're putting children first, we can't mess up but so bad. And I think both county commissioners and the Board of Education, that's our #1 priority, always has, always will be. I've got one announcement to make. The school committee, like you said, has been meeting. Dr. Jeffries has cleared ORED, the Operations Research Educational Laboratory from state. It's going to do the presentation May 16th at 6 o'clock here. It's open for, it's a joint meeting for county commissioners, Board of Education, and also open to the public.
And
It's
that'll
very
be
important meeting.
right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our board understands that,
6 o'clock.
and that is the study that the school boards haven't done as it relates to numerous items about the new elementary schools in the northern part of the county, as it relates to where the kids currently are, projections for where new growth will be, and many other things.
Yep.
Uh,
And we've
Chairman Lamb
used them
can explain
before
that a lot more than I
on
can.
redistricting our students and also on redistricting the Board of Education. It's a very good firm out of NC State. Any other board members have anything they'd like to add at this time? I thank you. I'd like to have continued working relationship with everybody. I think we're on the step in the right direction.
Could I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
About that form? Mr. Miller, do you have that form by any chance that we?
Get it to you tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't have it over right now.
Get it to us tomorrow and we'll
Well, you
get
have
it
a
signed.
copy of it
Which
already.
form you speak?
The one for the lottery loan, the status form.
I've got it.
Yeah, we have a copy of it.
I've got it right with me.
You got it?
I have.
We
Oh,
have
you
brought it
have
to
it.
your.
Oh,
Yes, I
okay,
do. I
okay.
have the original.
Never mind.
Yep, I do.
Okay, just want, I think we had a extension till
Yeah, whenever.
whenever. Okay,
To
good.
depart, to send it up to the state.
Actually, I can't remember how many people got to sign it, but if it's where it's just me who's got to sign it, I'll give it to you before we leave. I do have, I'm certain I got it with me in the particular folder here.
Any other questions from the Board of Education? I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion been moved and second. All in favor say aye. All opposed likewise. I declare the Nash County Board of Education, Nash-Rocky Mount Board of Education adjourned.
All right, and we had one action item that we wish to vote on tonight. In our meeting last week, with the chairman, vice chairman, the superintendent, and our chairman and vice chairman and the manager, we discussed at length the conditions that were put on the $800,000 advance that we were requested to provide. I think we worked out all of our questions with those items. Our board had voted on it during the retreat, that was the list we wanted to use. The request was made to us at that meeting if we would go back to our board and see if our board would be willing to break that into a 2-year payback of $400,000 this next year and $400,000 the following year. And I indicated at that time to Chairman Lamb that I would try to get that answer back to him very quickly so they could see where they were at the end of the year. And since we're in a public meeting tonight, I'm going to ask and I've talked to each one of the members of the commission about that. I'm going to ask if we could entertain a motion to accept that request, and then the rest of the conditions will stay as they are, as we provided to them. I'm very encouraged on the new school. We have completed several things already. We've had a couple of joint meetings on it, which we asked to be done in 30 days. We asked about the size of the school, which when we have this meeting on the 16th, we should be able to determine that very quickly. So, and then to have a site picked in 90 days, that would allow us to move very quickly. There are certainly some promises from the school board to have public input, et cetera. That's the things they want to do. But I think we are now understand that we're going to move forward with it pretty darn quickly. I will say, Dr. Jeffries, I was at a meeting on Saturday night, one of my Republican meetings, but it doesn't matter what party it was, and the Mark Johnson happened to be there, and I had quite a bit of time with him that I talked to him, and he is very insistent that we get this money spent. I will say that. I know we got an answer that didn't seem quite that insistent, but he just advises us to spend it because of the way things move around in state budget, quite frankly. So that's why we are very anxious to get the process started. But would any commissioner?
I make a motion that we divide the $800,000 advance up over 2 years.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Bellfield. Is there any questions on that motion?
I would just like to ask that stipulations as revised be made a part of the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, well, we can do that. Certainly we. Any other questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? That motion carries, and Franklin, if y'all could prepare your budget based on it's been split over 2 years.
Thank you, sir.
We have no other items to discuss tonight. I'd entertain a motion to any reason why we need to recess or adjourn is okay. Adjourn, I'll.
Unless we're gonna have a budget between now and next Monday.
Well, that's your call. We plan to have one.
We'll do it after. We'll do it on Tuesday.
Okay. All right, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn by the Board of Commissioners. A motion by Commissioner Bellfield, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on that motion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Stand adjourned. Thank y'all.